Hi, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of The Data Point. My name is Peter Jarich. I am the head of GSMA Intelligence. And today what we're going to be doing is a bit of a fireside chat. So a few weeks back, the Huawei Analyst Summit took place in Shenzhen, China. And GSMA Intelligence was lucky enough to be able to send a handful of our best and brightest. And so what I've done here today is I've brought them together, just talk about what we thought, right? What we learned, what we thought was interesting, surprising, what we really would have liked to have heard more about. For those of you who don't know, the Huawei Analyst Summit it's an annual event where Huawei brings together analysts from around the world to basically talk about their strategy, talk about their products. It's a huge opportunity to get insights into the company that you just can't necessarily get from afar, right? You're talking to people who are responsible and the execs who are on the ground. Now, obviously, it's been canceled for a few years because travel to China was either not easy or nigh impossible. And so this was the first in-person version back in several years. Now, you'll also know that beyond COVID, in those intervening years, a few things happened, including 5G scaling immensely, right? If you just think of pre-COVID versus where we are today, the market has moved on a lot. And at the same time, obviously, supply chain and security concerns, which have impacted Huawei and China as a whole, not to mention things like trade wars, right? So a lot has happened since the last edition of an in-person Huawei Analyst Summit. So this was going to be a big one, right? It was probably one of the most important ones, and it's why we sent so many folks and the important ones. So maybe we'll just do a quick set of introductions here to introduce everyone who is there. Tim, why don't you tell people who you are if they don't know?
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, Tim Hatt here, and I manage our consulting team.
Great. Thanks, Tim. Good to have you here. Elena.
Hello, my name is Elena Mogos, and I'm a forecast analyst covering mobile networks and technologies.
Ankit, last but not least.
Hi everyone, my name is Ankit. I work as a senior research manager and I look into the networks and spectrum.
Wonderful. Obviously, if you're customers, you probably know these folks. You see their names on the sites, on the reports, but it's good to have you all here. So I'm going to start with just a simple one. Ankit, and we'll start with you. Sort of, what was the biggest takeaway, right? If you look back at, the keynotes, the sessions that were for all of the analysts, the breakouts, the workshops, everything you did over those several days, what was your top biggest takeaway from the event?
My top takeaway would be about Huawei's focus on 5.5G in this era. And the main focus towards their strategy towards that was how operators can start monetizing with 5.5G. A big discussion in the whole industry has been how to monetize 5G services. With the 5.5G services, what Huawei is trying to show that how they can monetize it using from the enterprise customers as well as from the consumer customers. For the enterprise customer, they came up with passive IoT and RedCap, while for consumer customers, they came up with the immersive technology such as HD video calling. That was my biggest takeaway.
No, it's a good. I mean, we know the concerns around monetizing 5G are big, and we know Huawei's been talking around 5.5G for a lot of, for a good deal of the last year. So connecting those two things is an important message. Elena, how about you? What was your takeaway?
Sure. So my main takeaway is that Huawei is trying to provide full stack products with a simplest architecture to businesses to help them establish a reliable foundation in their digital transformation mission. The company is offering like cloud solutions as well as computing, network infrastructure, and software tools to help its customers achieve complete digitalization. Recently, Huawei has been investing massively in its R&D department, helping cloud, new industries, and software revenues go up. And this was evident in the fact that the handset showcases were not widely present, apart from the naked eye 3D smartphone, while other like AI-supported solutions, such as 5.5G supported transmission facilities, autonomous driving networks, or energy-efficient antennas were better advertised. And another important takeaway is that collaboration between all parties is essential in order to advance to advance the industry ecosystem and make 5.5G a reality.
Yeah, those are important messages. I think the full stack through end-to-end solutions are something, again, Huawei has talked about for years, but it's good to see that message continue, if only because it's nice to see that it's not going away during sort of a rethinking of the business, and likewise the collaboration side of things, particularly in today's environment, right? It's definitely an important message. Tim, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would make two that are linked and building on Elena's. The first is that it was clear that top management of Huawei is forging ahead with huge R&D investment, despite the challenging macro situation around the world, and where there is still a certain level of fog in demand for the types of networks that they're equipping. So I thought that was really impressive. And I think linked to that, there's a huge focus on energy efficiency and sustainability from the ground up, a holistic focus, so that their products are designed to be green, and moving the operator community towards net zero. We saw that in the network stack, we saw it in the core, we saw it in chipsets, and it was pervasive.
Yeah, it's I think we hear a lot about greenwashing, and so it's important to see where the rubber meets the road, and that's really being thought of holistically. So that's great news. Ankit, let's take the second question here. So big takeaways, great, but what were you surprised about? I mean, again, a lot of the things we knew 5.5G was going to be a big part of the story, and it's great to see it there. We knew the end-to-end solutions. Obviously, it's 2023. You can't help but talk about green. So those were important takeaways, but maybe not completely surprising. What were you surprised by out of the Huawei Analyst Summit?
To my surprise, the use of RedCap technology and passive IoT on a major scale was a big factor. These would be, as per Huawei, these would be like a game changer for the enterprise segment and helping operators, because they expect passive IoT to cross around 100 billion connections. So yeah, that might be a biggest surprise part.
No, that's huge. That's big. Elena, how about you? What were you surprised by?
So during the roundtable discussing the generalized energy efficient antennas, I was surprised to find that according to Huawei, there's no trade-off for businesses when changing from traditional antennas to its solution. Huawei's Eco Series antennas boost energy efficiency with innovations like full band signal direct injection feeding, or SDIF, and meta lens. And it sounds like a lot of investment was put into the research and development stage. So the Eco Series antennas were designed to reduce carbon emissions, reduce site power consumption, improve network energy efficiency and user experiences, while saving OPEX and offsetting any drawbacks.
Yeah, I mean they've put a lot of research and a lot of time and money into their antenna business, and so it's great to see that. And I think, again, surprising to at least see that message of no trade-offs. Tim, how about you? What was surprising?
Yeah, so I think Huawei is a Chinese-based company. We were in China for the event. China is a leading market for 5G. All of these things are known, and I think we saw a lot of examples from China about how 5G can be monetized in the enterprise, in the government sector and consumer. I was surprised that there wasn't a little bit more focus on other regions, and looking at how that can be monetized where conditions are perhaps less favorable, and perhaps require longer time horizon. So I think that would be kind of a helpful thing to consider for telcos in other parts of the world as they look to deploy 5G infrastructure capex in this challenging environment.
Yeah, especially since they do have customers in other regions, and they're looking to push into those other regions. Elena, how about you? Let's go backwards now as we think about the last question. Last question, right? What did you think was missing, right? If you could if you get in a time machine and go back and tell the Huawei folks, hey, you should do this, right? Or, go forward and say next time, maybe this could be a little bit better. What was the biggest missed opportunity for them?
Yeah, so similar to what Tim was saying, unsurprisingly, China continues to be Huawei's main market. So most use cases that were presented were from this region. So I would have liked to see more examples of its solutions being deployed in other parts of the world, because it's obvious that Huawei is trying to expand and attract worldwide interest. So I would have been particularly interested to see tests in other countries exploring how 5G advanced networks could support extended reality experiences. And also, there wasn't as much focus on security or data protection or much discussion about cybersecurity challenges in the 5.5G world as much as I would have expected. So that was a missed opportunity, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think we haven't talked about security much here, but I think if you look at our network transformation work, right, you see that, sustainability and security are our top concerns, right? And so I think it's a good shout, and it's a recommendation to any vendor really having an analyst event that bringing in customers, right, and showing customers from a broad set of regions and just a broad set of use cases is really critical. So I think good point around the non-Chinese customers. Ankit, how about you? What did you think was missing?
So in my opinion, like since Huawei is focusing so much on 5.5G, and in comparison to that, there was not much discussion on the 5G standalone part. Because if we refer to our data, like there hasn't been much speed on how many operators have transferred from an NSA mode to a 5G standalone mode. So a discussion on that front, like how many operators are they collaborating with and how operators are performing on this 5G standalone services. I think that was a miss for me. Was missing in
Yeah,
the
no, and it's important, I think, as you point out, right? We know 5G advanced and we know 5.5G or beyond 5G or whatever you want to call it's coming, but there's here and now investment that needs to take place, and we still need to get standalone across the line. So it's a good reminder. We can't just move on to the next big thing yet. Tim, lastly, what did you think was missing, right?
I think Huawei did a tremendous job showcasing the range of use cases and technology roadmap that is ahead of us. And I think that was really, really good to see. I think building on what the guys have said, the more that Huawei and others can bring in operators from around the world to show the business case and specifically how money is made from a technology deployment, that's really helpful. Zane gave a really interesting presentation on that. We had some examples from some European countries. I think the more that can be built out, that really is sort of the glue to the story and entrenches how it works in practice. So lots of good stuff, but just hopefully we can see more of that as we move forward.
Yeah, I'm reminded of one of the iterations of the Huawei Analyst Summit a few years ago when their main message was we work closely with operators as partners. They tell us what they need and we help them do that, or we do it for them. And what was missing there was sometimes they need your help too, because operators don't have all the answers. And so I think it's a good reminder, Tim, that yeah, it might not be Huawei's job, I think, as you were saying, to like tell operators, hey, here's how this works, right? Or here's the way to make this all work. But it helps, right? It helps those operators be successful, and ultimately that's what's in their interest. So this was great. Thank you all very, very much. I mean, to everyone out there, I think this was a great event. We are all happy to be back out in the real world and going to analyst events. So look for more of these going forward as we find ourselves at other events. If you want to see more stuff like this, please just let us know in the comments or send us notes directly, because we hope this is helpful. In the meantime, thanks, Tim. Thanks, Ankit. Thanks, Elena. Thanks to all of you out there who watch this, and we'll talk to you again soon.